This entitled mother-in-law refuses to go to her son's wedding, not because her son has done anything wrong, but because she can't live with the shame of her secret past life. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the show. The cast: MIL, my mother-in-law Karen; SIL, crazy sister-in-law; SIL2, my other younger sister-in-law; hubby, my husband; SM, hubby's stepmom; SF, hubby's stepdad. A bit of background: this happened pre-virus, around August of 2019. I, 22 female, was 9 months pregnant with our son at the time of our wedding. My MIL is a literal Karen. That is her real name, and she lives up to it. On top of that, my sister-in-law, 19 female, has taken after her mother unfortunately, and is the same level of crazy. My husband, 25 male, doesn't get along with them either, and they always end up arguing and yelling at each other. Yeah, I've asked him why he hasn't just cut them off, because at this point they have no happy times together ever. It's just incoherent screaming and crying 95% of the time. He says he hasn't cut them off yet because of his other sister. My SIL2, age 10 female. He loves SIL2, but recently, she's turning more and more like her mother as well, and pushing hubby away. MIL has even coached her to make nasty remarks about hubby's dad to him, who she didn't even know because they don't have the same father. Now, the story. I'm American and living in the UK, and needed a spouse visa to be able to stay with hubby, so we were hastily planning a wedding before our son was born. As I was about to be sent back to America due to my student visa expiring, I needed my new visa ASAP. So it was a little city hall wedding with 2 guests allowed. Since none of my family live in the UK, hubby invited his 2 parents of course, MIL and FIL. Fine by me, his dad is cool and I could handle dealing with MIL for 20 minutes. When hubby told his mother that he was inviting her and his dad to the wedding, she flipped her crap. She started screaming at hubby, saying things like, "I'm not standing next to that awful man. He threatened my life. I don't want to be anywhere near him for any amount of time. I don't feel safe near him." Yeah, note that FIL is one of the nicest people I've met, and it's actually MIL who has not only threatened FIL's life and nearly ran him over in her car. They divorced many years ago when hubby was still a kid. She cheated. They're both remarried now and have nothing to do with each other, though when hubby brought this up with FIL, he said he would have been fine just standing next to MIL for a 20-minute ceremony. They wouldn't even have to speak to each other. Hubby came back to MIL and told her, "Well, that's who I want at our wedding. If you can't stand there and be civil for 15 to 20 minutes, then just don't come. I'll invite SM, stepmom, FIL's wife instead." This led to MIL sobbing again. Hubby just didn't care and walked out. She then turned to me and asked how could he ask her to stand next to such an awful man for any amount of time, and asked if I could talk hubby into disinviting FIL in favor of inviting her and SF, stepdad, MIL's husband, instead. I said no. They're his parents and he can invite whoever he wants. Hubby works in the army and was away most of the week as his camp was 2 hours away from where we were living at the time, which was unfortunately MIL's house as we were in between houses at the time. While he was away a few days before our wedding, MIL cornered me in our bedroom. She threw a full-blown tantrum about how I was taking away her right to see her firstborn son get married, and that all this was my fault. Me being an over-emotional and hormonal pregnant woman, sobbed back at her that we never uninvited her and that she was still welcome to come. She snapped back, "You essentially uninvited me when you decided to invite hubby's dad." I said to her that FIL has every right to be there as much as she does, and once again that it was hubby's parents, so it was hubby's choice. I didn't say it, but according to hubby, all the bad things that happened was on her end, not FIL's. I reminded her that she actually has the chance to go, while my dad doesn't have the opportunity at all to see his firstborn get married. He didn't have the money to fly over from America. He would never get to walk me down the aisle. He would never get to give me away. He couldn't even watch. That didn't stop her. I just let her rage at me for another 10 minutes while I zoned out at the point before she stormed out. Hubby wasn't happy when I told him what happened. Skip to our wedding day. MIL has decided to take a freaking vacation and is long gone. Now screaming at hubby that, how dare we have our wedding when she can't attend? What? This set SIL off, who is still at the house, and she's in a bad mood, saying, how could we do that to her poor mother? Hubby ended up having to borrow SF's shoes with SF's consent for the wedding. But when SIL saw hubby walking out with SF's shoes, she exploded in the same way MIL does and shouted at him about what a degenerate he is, and he can't just steal shoes from his stepdad when they aren't home. This led to a big argument with her and hubby. On our wedding day, mind. We left the house with hubby ticked off. The nerve of SIL to scream at him on his wedding day over something not only trivial, but something he had permission to do, is something I've never gotten over. She never even apologized to this day. The ceremony was short and sweet, but still the happiest day of my life. FIL and SM attended, and they took us out for a fancy lunch. Then we parted ways, so hubby and I could enjoy the day together. Hubby and I went to get dessert at a nice gelato shop, and it was going well. While we were there, we updated our social media statuses to married. Not a good idea apparently, because while we were sitting there enjoying our gelato, hubby's phone rang, and it's none other than MIL. Hubby picked up thinking it was going to be her congratulating us, but I knew better. Immediately, she began screaming at us again, which drew the attention of others in the shop, saying how could we do this to her yet again on her special day, knowing well she couldn't even be there with us. Confused, hubby asks what we've done this time to set her off. It was my right to tell the family my son is married, and you took that away from me too. I had to hear it from my sister that you already updated your FB status, and now the surprise is ruined. I already couldn't come because she, referring to me, didn't invite us. Hubby just hung up. She's fake AF. She tries to act nice, but I can still see the resentment she has for me, because apparently it was my fault she couldn't stand next to the man she cheated on for less than 20 minutes for her son's sake. I just want to cut her off, but hubby keeps saying yes when she asks to come over. I ask him why, and he just says, I don't know why I keep letting her in. So now she's coming over this weekend, and quite honestly, I might snap at her for the comments she made about our son. No happy ending. She's still in our lives because hubby can't cut her off for some reason. Maybe it's just because she's his mum, despite all them doing is fighting and leaving him ticked for the rest of the day. I expect there to be fighting when she comes over, to be honest, but I have made it clear I am not going with him when he goes to visit her, and neither is our son. He can go alone. She undermines our parenting, and our son always comes home ill after being over there. I would never force hubby to cut her off. I don't know how a mother-child bond feels, as I didn't have a mum. I can't even imagine how he feels. Weddings really do seem to bring the best out of people, don't they? And by best, I mean worst. I think the mother-in-law just probably couldn't handle the guilt that she cheated on her husband. I don't know if the father-in-law has forgiven her, or if it's just that he's dealt with it and processed it, so he's obviously mature enough to stand there for 20 minutes and handle her, who was the one who cheated on him, but she obviously has such overbearing guilt that she can't even be in the same room as him for 20 minutes. And on top of that, she has the nerve to then blame everyone else as if she's somehow not invited. Well, number one, perhaps start off by not cheating on your partner, and number two, if you make mistakes like that, actually own up to them, and when others are still willing to invite them into your life, stop blaming them for not getting things 100% your way. So some of these focus on the daughters more as we grow up, but parents are still included, don't worry. I'll make these in a list so they're a bit easier to read. Reminder, EM is Karen, ED is Dan, entitled daughters are Taylor, older, and Caitlin, younger. I am between Taylor and Caitlin's ages. Sam is another girl in my neighborhood that is Taylor's age, who I was very good friends with growing up, until Taylor and Karen got her to dump me. Number 1. Caitlin was at my house one day playing, and we were probably 6 years old. We were playing dress up, and she borrowed one of my pairs of tights. She was bigger than me, and they didn't fit quite right, but as kids, we didn't care. I only say this because of the latest story. It came time for Caitlin to leave, and she put the dress she had been wearing back on, with my tights under it. As she left, my mum asked her where she got her tights. It's now clear to me that she knew they were mine, but thought maybe Caitlin had just forgot. Caitlin said her mum had just bought them for her, and my mum said, "Funny, I think OP has a pair just like that. I don't remember you wearing them here." Remember, these tights clearly didn't fit Caitlin, and my mom knew they were mine. Caitlin says something like, "They're mine, I just got them." Now my mum, not wanting to be a bee over tights, but wanting to stop the child from stealing from me, she did this kind of stuff a lot, calls Karen. She asks if Caitlin has these tights too, and she says, "Of course, the butterfly ones? I got those for her, she loves the blue." The butterflies on the tights were yellow. My mum asked Caitlin to take them off in the bathroom and bring them out so we could see if they were mine, and she maybe mixed them up. My mum has written my name on the tag, and when Caitlin brings them out, there was my name. My mum asked Caitlin to leave them there, and she refuses, saying they were hers and I wanted to steal them. Then Karen shows up, and my mum explains what's going on. Karen accuses my mum of writing my name on her daughter's tights. My mum asks them to leave and refuses to give them the tights. While these are probably $3 tights, my mum says it's the principle of it. They both lied, and instead of teaching Caitlin right from wrong, EM encouraged the behavior. Remember when I said, last post, that Caitlin turned out to be a pathological liar? Yep. Number 2. In high school, me, freshman, Taylor, sophomore, I ended up with a math class with Taylor. She wanted me to cheat on a test with her. It was a take-home test we were told not to work on with anyone. I am a rule follower. It should also be mentioned that I had already gotten crap from her for being in this class. I was supposed to be a grade below, and was in an accelerated math program, essentially placing me in a math class 2 years ahead. I had an A in the class, she had a C. This made her furious. So after class, she came up to me and asked if I would work on the test with her. I said no, I wanted to work on it on my own, like we're supposed to. She kept begging me, saying she could help me, and that it would be so much better for me to have her help. I said no, I appreciate her help, but I'd rather work at my own pace and figure things out on my own. She said, "Okay, just call me stupid, why don't you? Screw you, I'm not walking home with you." I said, "Okay, that's fine, see you tomorrow," and went to my last block. After that, I left school. We usually had a group text where we asked who was walking home and walked in a group, but today I knew it was just me and Taylor from that group who would be walking home. I texted another friend from a street nearby, and she said she would like to walk with me. We didn't usually walk together, as we were only kind of friends, but it worked out that day. I told her what happened with Taylor on the way, and we both laughed about how crazy she was being. We are about a quarter of the way home when my phone starts ringing. I look and it's Taylor. I ignore it. I was not about to deal with her bullcrap. She called again, and I ignored it again. I was in conversation with my friend and didn't notice it ring 5 more times. We now are about 2/3 of the way home, and I hear screaming behind me. We both spin around and see Taylor, red-faced and running after us, up a hill. I turn around and say to my friend, "Should we wait?" And she told me it was up to me. Mind you, at this point, I was so done with her. This girl always insulted me and stuff. So I said, "Let's keep walking," and we did. I hear Taylor scream, "Sure, keep walking, you bee. I'm telling on you." Yes, she was telling on me in 10th grade. I get home and tell my mum what happens in preparation of what I knew was coming. Sure enough, the next time my mum sees Karen, she is asked, "Does OP not walk with Taylor anymore? I heard she kicked her out of the walking group today." My mum tells her what happened, and Karen says, "Well, maybe OP should help Taylor with her test. If a teacher gives a take-home test, they have to know kids will cheat. Besides, Taylor needs help, and your daughter doesn't deserve to be in that class. It's my daughter's level, and she makes Taylor feel bad by being good in that class. Just help her. It's only right." Sound familiar? My mum said in no way would I be doing that, and that if Taylor actually wanted to walk with me, she shouldn't have said she didn't want to. I think Taylor thought this was some kind of punishment for me, and that the threat of not walking with me would make me see how wrong I was. It was actually a relief. I hated her anyways. I ended up with an A on the test, and Taylor nearly failed. Number 3. Taylor has now gotten her driver's license, and my brother and I go to the same school. Again, most of us walk home, but the few kids with licenses give rides to people on a first come, first serve basis. Lots of kids in my neighborhood. I would usually ask Sam for a ride, as I wasn't big on Taylor, always entitled, etc. But Sam was busy this day after school, so I asked Taylor, as because it was cold and I didn't want to walk. Before you ask, yes, she has driven us many times before and always offered. I think she liked having something that I didn't and wanted to use it to feel superior to me. Anyways, we ran into her on the way out and she said her car was full and my brother and I couldn't go with her. Okay, whatever, we will walk. The road we walk on is straight with a small side street that connects in two places on the road. No offshoots and no kids live there. It's kind of like a horseshoe connected to the road on both ends. We also had not passed any kids' houses at our school, so we hear a car behind us, always alert, and turn to see Taylor's empty car, besides her and her sister Caitlin. They turn into the horseshoe street. We had just crossed the first entrance and come out the other side in front of us. She literally went out of her way to not drive by us. She had no one in her car and didn't want us to see that she had lied. Now, I'm fine if she didn't want to drive us, but lying about it ticked me off. My brother was ticked too, since she always did stuff like this. I didn't let it bother me too much though, but the next day I see Taylor and she says, "Oh yeah, yesterday my car ride was cancelled. I saw you guys walking but didn't want to bother you, so I drove around you. You didn't need a ride anyways and my mom said I don't have to help you." Literally, I was dumbfounded. I didn't care too much before, but this unprompted statement ticked me off. It was just so extra. I said it was fine and that I probably wouldn't need her help anyways, since I would get my license in a few months and didn't really want her help. She later would offer me rides and I would decline, saying I'd rather walk. I know it seems petty, but after that, I knew she only used the rides as a way to have something over me. She would always ask me for homework answers because she drove me home or whatever, and I was done with it. Bonus small story. Karen always wanted her daughters to be skinny, like I was. My mum has since told me she used to ask her, "How much do you restrict OP's food? How do you get her to be so small? I wish my kids looked like her." And when my mum told her she actually wished I could eat and that I wasn't eating due to my anxiety, Karen said, "Well, I wish my daughters had that. It must be so good for her to stay so thin." Using something like a car ride home from school as a power play to get them to do your homework is so petty. Just because you get your license doesn't mean that other people are now entitled to a car ride with you, but it's the sort of thing that should be fun. You should enjoy the fact that, hey, now you've got a bit of independence and you can help out your friends by giving them a ride home. The fact that she turned it into such a negative thing is so sad, especially because in a few months, everyone else will have their license as well, so it's no big deal. Your short amount of time to be really generous to others is gone, and now all they'll remember you for is being manipulative. Submit your story to be read on the channel at voiceyherestories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.